If you were black in 1930 America, you could be killed for looking someone in the eye. Not fighting, not stealing, not breaking the law, just looking. If you spoke at the wrong time, you could disappear. If you defended your own body, you could die for it. If you tried to vote, they might burn your house down that same night. This was not rumor. This was not rare. This was daily life. 1930. People call it the Great Depression. But for Black Americans, the Depression had never ended. Because this country was running on something deeper than poverty. It was running on fear, control, and a system of invisible rules that could cost you everything if you broke them. No judge needed, no jury, no appeal, just punishment. So today, I'm going to show you 10 things you were forbidden to do if you were black in 1930. Not because they were wrong, but because surviving meant knowing exactly where the line was. Let's start with something so small, it shouldn't matter at all. Your eyes. 1. You could not look a white person in the eye. Not directly, not for too long, not in a way that could be mistaken for confidence. Because eye contact was not just eye contact. It was seen as a challenge, as disrespect, as equality. And equality was the one thing this system could not allow. So you learned early, before you understood politics, before you understood history, before you even understood why. Keep your eyes down. Your mother said it gently. Your father showed it silently, every single day. On the sidewalk, he would step aside, lower his gaze, let a white man pass as if the ground itself belonged to him. And you watched. You always watched. Because one mistake, 1 second of forgetting, could cost everything. Imagine this. Your father comes home late. His hands are shaking just slightly, his jaw tight. He doesn't say much, but you feel it. Something happened. Finally, he tells your mother, "I looked at him." Just that, nothing more. He was tired, distracted. For 1 second, he forgot the rule. He looked his white supervisor in the eye. The man exploded, called him uppity, threatened him, reminded him exactly where he stood. And your father had to apologize for looking. That night, your mother holds his face in her hands. She says nothing. She doesn't need to. Because in that silence, you understand something. This is survival. This is what it costs. And from that moment on, your eyes learn. They learn the ground, the pavement, the dust on your shoes, the cracks in wooden floors, anything but their faces. You develop a different kind of vision. You don't look directly, but you see everything. Footsteps, tone of voice, the shift in air when danger walks into a room. You feel people before you see them. You adjust before anything happens. Because staying alive means reading the world without ever appearing to challenge it. But here's the truth they could never control. Lowering your eyes did not mean you believed the lie. It meant you understood the rules and chose to survive them. Because when night came, everything changed. At home, your eyes lifted again. To your family, to your community, to people who knew your name and your worth. And in those moments, quiet, unseen, you remembered something the system tried to erase. You were never meant to live looking down. And that was only the first rule. You could not testify against a white person in court. On paper, you had the right. The law said you could speak. But in reality, your voice meant nothing. Because if your truth stood against a white man's word, your truth disappeared. Imagine standing in a courtroom. You saw everything. A crime. Clear. Undeniable. You were there. You remember the face, the voice, the moment it happened. You step forward. You swear to tell the truth. And for a second, you believe it matters. But the moment you speak, the room changes. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The judge doesn't look at you the same way. The jury doesn't hear you the same way. Because before you said a single word, they already decided what you are worth. And what you are worth is less than him. So your testimony is questioned, dismissed, ignored. Not because it's false, but because you said it. Now imagine something worse. A white man hurts someone you love. Your wife, your sister, your daughter. You know who did it. Everyone knows who did it. He doesn't even hide it. Because he understands something you are forced to learn. The system protects him. You go to court anyway, because what else can you do? You stand there, heart pounding, voice steady, or trying to be. You tell the truth, every detail. And when you finish, nothing happens. No outrage, no justice, no consequence. Just silence. Then his lawyer speaks, calm, confident. He says you misunderstood. He says you're lying. He says you're confused. And somehow, that is enough. The judge nods. The case weakens. The truth slips through the cracks. And you realize something that stays with you for the rest of your life. The law is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. Because those same courtrooms, those same steps, had seen black men dragged out by mobs, had seen sheriffs look away, had seen judges pretend not to see. So you learn. You learn not to expect justice. You learn that truth is not enough. You learn that speaking can be dangerous. And sometimes, staying silent is the only way to survive. Picture this. A young black man is beaten in broad daylight, Main Street, witnesses everywhere. People saw it happen, clear as day. He survives, barely. He goes to court. He tells the truth. And the men who did it say he was disrespectful. That's all. One word. And the judge accepts it. Case dismissed. The men walk free. The young man never walks the same again. Justice was never blind. It could see color perfectly. And if you were black in 1930, it chose not to see you at all. That was the second rule, and it meant even the truth could not save you. 3. You could not vote. Not really. The Constitution said you could. The 15th Amendment promised it. On paper, you had the right. But every path to that right was a trap. First, they made you pay. A poll tax. Money, just to cast a vote. And if you were black in 1930, you were already fighting to survive. Food or voting. Rent or voting. Your children eat or you try to be heard. Most people didn't even get past that first barrier. But let's say you did. Let's say you saved the money. You showed up. You stood in line. Then came the test. A literacy test. Sounds fair until you see it. Questions that made no sense. Questions no one could answer. How many bubbles are in a bar of soap? Interpret this clause of the Constitution. And even if you answered perfectly, they could still fail you. Because the test was never meant to measure intelligence. It was designed to stop you. Meanwhile, white voters walked past you. No test, no payment, no questions. Because of something called the grandfather clause. If your grandfather had voted, you could vote too. But your grandfather was enslaved. So the door was closed before you even reached it. And if somehow you made it through all of that, if you passed the test, paid the tax, stood your ground, there was still one final barrier: violence. Because voting was not just a political act, it was seen as a threat. The Ku Klux Klan understood that. Local officials understood that. Your neighbors understood that. If your name appeared on a voter list, you became visible, and visibility was dangerous. Houses burned, men beaten, families terrorized in the night, all for one thing: a vote. Imagine this. Your uncle is a teacher, educated, respected. He can read better than most white men in the county. He decides to vote. He studies for the test, saves money for the tax, walks into that building knowing he has every legal right. He takes the test, answers every question. They fail him anyway. No explanation, no appeal, no second chance. Because it was never about the answers. It was about power. 2 weeks later, a cross burns in his yard. No words, no warning, no signatures. Just fire in the dark. And a message he understands immediately: don't try again. And he doesn't. Not because he gave up, because he wanted to live. That was the reality. You were told you had a voice, but every system in place made sure you could never use it. And if you tried, you paid for it. That was the third rule, and it ensured you stayed powerless. 4. You could not eat in white restaurants. Hunger doesn't care about race. But in 1930, food did. Imagine traveling. Long road, dust, heat, or cold. You haven't eaten in hours, maybe all day. Then you smell it. Fresh bread, hot meat, coffee. A restaurant up ahead. And for a moment, you feel relief. Until you remember, that place is not for you. There's a sign, sometimes written, sometimes not, but always understood. We don't serve colored here. So you keep walking, even though your stomach aches, even though your legs are tired, because walking away is safer than asking. Now sometimes there is a back door, not an entrance, a reminder. You go around the building, stand near the kitchen, wait. Maybe someone comes out, maybe they don't. If they do, you don't step inside. You don't sit down. You don't get a table. You order standing up. You pay more. You take your food and leave. No dignity, no welcome, just permission to eat and disappear. And most places won't even give you that. So you learn. You memorize the map. Which towns are dangerous, which roads to avoid, which places might feed you without humiliation. You pack food before you leave, because hunger is easier to handle than disrespect. Imagine this. A woman traveling with her baby. The child is crying, hungry. She stops at a restaurant, then another, then another. 5 places, all say no. The baby keeps crying, louder now, desperate, and the mother has nothing left to give. Finally, a black woman in a kitchen sneaks out the back. Bread, milk. No words, just a quick glance, and gone again. The baby eats, and the mother starts to cry. Not from relief, from rage. Because feeding your child should never feel like begging. But in 1930, it did. And you carry that feeling. Every trip, every road, every stop. The constant calculation. Where can I eat? Where can I stand? Where am I allowed to exist without being turned away? Because something as basic as food had been turned into a line. And crossing that line could cost you more than a meal. It could cost you your safety, your dignity, your life. That was the fourth rule. Even hunger had boundaries. 5. You could not use the same bathrooms as white people. Think about that. Something so basic, so human, turned into a weapon. Everywhere you went, there were signs. White, colored. 2 words that decided your place in the world. And those 2 places were never the same. The white bathroom, clean, bright, maintained. Running water, soap, towels. The colored bathroom, if it existed at all, was broken, dirty, neglected. Sometimes no water, sometimes no door, sometimes nothing but a space that reminded you exactly what they thought you were worth. And many places didn't even offer that. No colored bathroom, no access. Just a rule. You don't belong in here. So you learn to plan your body, where you could go, how long you could wait, which church, which home, which safe place might let you use a bathroom without being turned away. Imagine working all day inside a white-owned building, cleaning, sweeping, maintaining. You scrub their floors, you clean their bathrooms, you make them spotless. But you cannot use them, not even for a moment, not even when no one is watching, because being caught would cost you the job. And the job is survival. So you hold it, hour after hour, ignoring the pain, ignoring your body, waiting until you get home. Water was no different. 2 fountains, side by side. One clean, cold, clear. The other rusted, warm, barely working. And a sign telling you which one was yours. Not by choice, by design. Imagine your father, working construction. 12 hours under the sun, heat rising off the ground. There's a water fountain nearby. He can see it. White workers drinking freely. Cold water, whenever they want. But he can't touch it. He brings his own water. A small canteen, rationed, carefully. Because when it runs out, there is nothing else. And still, he keeps working. Through the heat, through the dizziness, through the thirst. Because stopping is not an option. And complaining is even more dangerous. So he comes home each night, exhausted, dehydrated, silent. And this is what people don't always understand. Segregation wasn't just separation. It was constant reminder. Every door, every sign, every small daily moment telling you the same thing. You are less. Not sometimes. Everywhere. And the hardest part? You still had to live inside it. Every single day. That was the 5th rule. Even your body was controlled. 6. You could not defend yourself. against white violence. Think about that. Your body was not yours. Your safety was not yours. Because if someone hurt you, you were not allowed to stop them. A white man hits you, you cannot hit back. If you do, you are the criminal. Not him, you. And the punishment will be worse than anything he did to you. Beating, arrest, or something far worse. Because in 1930, justice did not protect you. It controlled you. Now imagine something even harder. Someone attacks your family, your wife, your sister, your daughter. Every instinct in your body says, fight, protect them, stop him. But you don't move. Because you know something deeper than instinct. If you fight back, you will die. Not maybe, not possibly, certainly. And not just you. They might come for your family next. Burn your home. Destroy everything you built. All because you refused to accept the violence. So you stand there, and you endure it. And that breaks something inside you. Because survival sometimes meant watching and doing nothing. Not because you were weak, because you wanted to live. And the system knew that. It depended on it. It created a world where your humanity was turned against you. Your love for your family became a weapon used to control you. Imagine this. A man argues over a small debt. The other man is white. The argument turns violent. The white man throws the first punch. Instinct takes over. The black man raises his hands just to block it. He doesn't strike back. He doesn't retaliate. He just protects himself. That alone is enough. 3 days later, his body is found hanging from a tree. The report says suicide. Everyone knows the truth, but no one says it. Because saying it can get you next. This wasn't rare. This was understood. A rule without being written. You do not resist. You do not fight back. You do not defend yourself. Or you disappear. And the worst part? The people responsible walk freely. They go home, eat dinner, sleep peacefully, while your family buries you and carries that silence for the rest of their lives. That was the 6th rule. Even your life was not yours to protect. 7. You could not safely own land in the wrong place. Land meant independence, stability, a future. And that made it dangerous. Because if you owned something, you had something they could not control. So the system adapted, not always with laws, sometimes with something simpler. Fear. Banks wouldn't lend to you. Neighborhoods wouldn't accept you. Contracts were written to exclude you. And if you still found a way, if you still bought land, violence would finish the job. Imagine your grandfather, 20 years saving, every dollar earned slowly, painfully. He finally buys land. Not much, but his. For the first time, he owns something real. He builds a house, plants crops, starts to believe this might last. Then one day, a white man makes an offer. He wants the land. Your grandfather says no, as it's his. 2 weeks later, men come at night. Fire, gunshots, animals killed, a message left behind. Sell or die. And suddenly, ownership means nothing, because survival comes first. So he sells, for less than it's worth, for less than he paid, for less than it cost him to build. And he never tries again, because he understands now. You can work for land. You can earn it. You can build on it. But you cannot keep it if the wrong person wants it. That was the 7th rule. Even what you owned was never truly yours. 8. You could not receive equal education. They told you education was the path forward, the way out, the American dream. But in 1930, that path was never meant for you. White schools had resources, new books, trained teachers, proper buildings. Black schools got what was left behind. Old textbooks, pages missing, information already outdated, sometimes no desks, sometimes no heat, sometimes no school at all. Imagine walking miles every morning, 6 miles, maybe more. Dust in the summer, cold in the winter, and as you walk, a school bus passes you. White children inside, warm, laughing, looking out the window. Some of them wave. They don't mean harm. They just don't understand why you can't ride with them. Your school is one room, 40 students, 8 grade levels, 1 teacher, and somehow she teaches all of you. She stays late, grades papers by lamplight, pushes you harder than you think is fair, because she knows something you don't. You will have to be better, just to be seen as equal, and even then, it may not be enough. Most children don't make it far, not because they aren't capable, because the system won't let them. They're pulled out of school early, to work, to survive. Fields, factories, labor before learning. And every year cut short is a future cut smaller. That was the 8th rule. Your potential was not meant to grow. 9. You could not love freely. Love was dangerous, not just judged, not just forbidden, punished. If you were black and you loved someone white, that alone could get you killed. Not arrested, not warned, killed. Even suspicion was enough. A glance, a conversation, a rumor. That was all it took. Because this was the line the system guarded most violently. Not just separation, control. White men could violate black women without consequence, but a black man could not even be suspected of loving a white woman. That imbalance was not accidental. It was power. Imagine this. A man falls in love, quietly, carefully. He knows the risk. So does she. They meet in secret, speak in whispers, dream of leaving, going north, somewhere safer, somewhere they can exist. But someone sees them. That's all it takes. One person, one moment, one report, and suddenly their love becomes a death sentence. He disappears. No explanation. His body is found days later, She is sent away, the story erased, as if it never existed. And you learn something else. Love is not free, not for you. It must be hidden, measured, weighed against survival, because even your heart was not entirely yours. That was the 9th rule. 10. You could not expect justice. Not sometimes. Not in certain cases. Ever. Because the system was never built to protect you. It was built to control you. A white man kills a black man. No arrest, no trial, no consequence. A black man is accused of anything, and suddenly, guilt is automatic. Punishment is immediate. And often, it never even reaches a courtroom, because justice was happening somewhere else. In the streets, in the dark, in crowds. Lynchings weren't hidden. They were public. Crowds gathered. People watched. Photographs were taken. Sometimes they brought their children. That's how normalized it was. That's how accepted. And the message was always the same. This is what happens if you forget your place. The sheriff might be there. The judge might know. The law would do nothing. Or worse, it would help. Imagine this. A man is accused of stealing. He didn't do it. There are witnesses, people who saw the truth. But they are black, so their voices don't count. A mob forms that night. The jail is not protection. The sheriff hands over the keys. And by morning, that man is gone. The newspaper writes one sentence. Justice was served. And life moves on. No arrests, no consequences, no accountability. Just silence. That was the 10th rule. Justice was not yours. And when you put all of this together, the eyes, the voice, the vote, the body, the land, the future, the love, the law, you start to see it clearly. This wasn't just discrimination. It was a system. A system designed to control every part of your life. To remind you, every single day, that you were not equal. And yet, they survived it. That's the part people don't sit with long enough. They survived. Not easily, not without pain, but they survived. They built families. They created music. They wrote stories. They educated children in rooms with almost nothing. They found ways to remain human in a system designed to erase that humanity. That is strength. Not the kind you see in movies, the kind you carry quietly, the kind that endures. And that strength is still here. In families, in culture, in memory. Because 1930 was not that long ago. One lifetime, one generation removed, and the effects are still with us. So when we tell these stories, it's not to stay in the past. It's to understand the present, and to make sure nothing like this is ever allowed again. If this made you think, if it made you feel something real, subscribe to Black and White History. Be part of a community that remembers, because forgetting is how systems like this survive. And before you go, tell me this. Which of these hit you the hardest? because every answer is part of the story. And stories like this should never be forgotten.